And we are recording.
Hello, I'm Marla Barthen. I'm an RN and a board certified patient advocate. I'm a community health worker here in Wilmington and a member of the Resiliency Task Force. Welcome to Flipping the Conversation, and we thank you for your participation in today's program. Funding for this series has been made possible through a grant from North Carolina Families United as part of the North Carolina Trauma Informed Communities Initiative project, coordinated by Duke Center for Child and Family Health. The New Hanover Resiliency Task Force is proud to be one of the 6 organization sites across North Carolina receiving this funding to make our communities more resilient and trauma-informed, and is grateful to Healing Your Almond and the great team assembled for bringing this project to life. For more information about the New Hanover Resiliency Task Force, please visit www.nhcbouncesback.org. Today we have with us our panelists, and I will introduce them. Jamie Washington is a licensed clinical mental health counselor and addiction specialist who works with the active duty service members as a military and family life counselor and also does contract work, moonlighting at the LMV counseling and as an outpatient therapist. He's very interested in trauma and supporting clients through this. Suzanne Wortman is a certified nurse midwife who works in advocacy and government affairs. She has worked in sexual and reproductive health care, caring for people of all ages and helping them achieve their best health. In her work, both clinically and politically, she sees the effects of trauma on the mind, body, and community, and is committed to trauma-informed work. Brittany Patterson is the co-founder of Invisibility Project, a dance and spoken word performance and training series on race relations in Wilmington. She is also a licensed clinical social worker specializing in trauma-informed child and family therapy and somatic approaches. She currently works as an outpatient therapist at Madewell Center for Wholeness. And we have Franchon Francis is the founder of Healing Your Almond, a licensed clinical mental health counselor and certified trauma practitioner and trainer. Franchon is known for her authentic leadership in engaging and speaking. So Franchon, tell me a little bit more about this project, and hopefully you can shed some light here. Are the sessions going to be in person or are they going to be virtual?
Well, the first thing is everything is going to be virtual except for phase 3. So this is a panel discussion so they can meet my whole team, but it's also really an invitation, right? So a lot of times when people invite us to do things, we sometimes get a flyer and we may get like some Facebook posts, but we don't really necessarily know what we're signing up for. So Flipping the Conversation is about racism, it's about equity, it's specifically focused on New Hanover County. All of those things are super important. It is definitely not just me, there's a whole team of us, and my team members are going to have a chance to talk a little bit more later. This is an invitation, and phase 1 is the invitation. So this is the first one, and then we have 2 more coming up this week. And then phase 2 is sessions that are going to occur every Thursday starting April 1st in the evening from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Yes, 6:30 p.m. What's the time? Somebody give me the exact time. I believe it's 6 or 6:30. So we are starting that on April 1st. So today we're here to just kind of invite you. We want everybody to come. We will give you a heads up that we are separating the groups in phase 2. So that phase 2 that's going to start in April, we are having our first session will be everybody. And then our second session, we're going to separate into white folks and people of color. And the facilitators that you see will be facilitating those individual groups. And that's phase 2. And what we talk about in phase 2 is largely going to depend on who's in the room. meaning the facilitators are really going to focus on customizing that information to benefit the people who decide to engage with us in phase 2. Phase 3 is going to occur end of May, beginning of June. And phase 3 is a community presentation. And the reason for phase 3 is we want to make sure that people understand what happened and what you guys learned as choosing to participate. We're looking at this as the first cohort of many. So Marla, I'm getting some feedback and I just want to know, am I frozen, not frozen? Can people still hear me?
Yeah, your face is frozen, but your audio is working correctly. So keep talking, you're good. Well, can I cut in there? And I wanted to ask, so you say that in phase,
so ignore my face and just focus on audio. Yeah.
So in phase 2, when you say we separate into groups, like how would I know which group I belong in? And then for those folks who are multicultural or unsure, how would we split those folks up?
It's absolutely up to you. When you register, you actually get to pick. So there's some options. Option 1 is to register whether or not you would like to participate in English or Spanish. And then option 2 is you get to pick which group you feel like you should be in. So if you want to be in the people of color group, you choose that group. If you feel like you fit better in the white group, then you choose that group. It's really up to you. We're not here to tell you how to identify by names.
Okay. And then what would happen if I couldn't make all of the sessions?
We are really trying to stick to everybody kind of gets a pass for one easily. Like we understand, life happens, and every Thursday night for almost 2 months is quite a commitment. So if you miss one, we completely get that. If you feel like you're going to miss more than one, like 2 or 3, you may have to catch us on the next cohort, but it's kind of just communicating with us and letting us know kind of what you have going on and what you may need. But we definitely understand that everybody some point during the time is probably going to miss at least one. We're just hoping it doesn't get more than that.
Okay. Now, is there going to be a cost or a fee for us to participate?
No, as you so eloquently read in the beginning, New Hanover County Resiliency Task Force was awarded a grant for this project. So there will be no cost to any participants.
Okay. And now the requirements for us to participate, do we have to be a New Hanover County resident? Do we have to be a certain age? Are there any other requirements?
Yeah, so the only requirements are exactly what you listed. You have to be 18 years or older, and you do need to live in New Hanover County.
Well, thank you. All right, well, then I think we'll move on to asking our different panelists what they bring into this. So I'm going to start with Suzanne. I'm going to ask the same question of each participant. Could you please explain briefly what you bring to this work and why you're passionate about it?
Sure. Thank you, Marla. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm so happy to see so many familiar faces. Yay, us, yay, Wilmington, and also so many unfamiliar names and faces too. I'm really excited to be involved in this work. When Franchon invited me to be part of her team, I immediately felt a little bit humbled and like, okay, this is big. This is a big responsibility. How can I do this? But I will tell you, one of the things that drives me to wake up every day and work on equity in general, and being a person that can help heal our community here in Wilmington is the fact that I'm a mom. I wear several hats as a healthcare provider, an advocate, but I think my most important role is the role of mother. I have a teenage son, and he was born in the Virgin Islands. We made the conscious decision to move to Wilmington for a variety of reasons. But one of the things that attracted us to Wilmington was, in addition to like the fabulous weather and great opportunities here, was the diverse community. When we got here, we quickly realized it was a diverse community that was functioning very separately. And so for me, you know, when I'm talking to my son, like about how I want him to show up as a white guy, with a Caribbean background, but a white guy, you know, white appearing, is that, you know, we're here to be our authentic selves, to, you know, meet with people where they are, and not to judge people on the color of their skin or any other really superficial characteristic. And so I'm here to just learn with y'all and hopefully bring us into a new phase. And that was a long-winded answer, Marla. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. That was great, though. I loved hearing about your son. All right, I'm going to ask the same question of Jamie. What do you think you bring to this work, and why are you passionate about it?
You know, that's a good question, Marla, because I question that every day. But but seriously, I with just kind of like the experience of being a clinical mental health counselor and addiction specialist, I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of different people and dealing with a lot of different issues. And one of the common threads that kind of weaves its way through some of my sessions with clients is this issue of diversity and inclusion, and particularly as it relates to like just what has happened in the wake of the global pandemic and all of the things that have been kind of teased out in that, and like how people respond or have responded to that, whether that's emotionally or what have you. And so a lot of people are grappling with how to verbalize or find like language around like what they might be experiencing. And like part of my passion is to help people find that language, not necessarily to help someone land at a particular point of view, but like to find language. And then that level of awareness tends to lead to people making changes that they want to make. So what I hope to see with this project is that people develop a sense of awareness of how we impact each other and how we might be able to make a difference in the long run. So I am also a native woman, well, not Wilmingtonian. I'm actually from Leland, but you know, when you are dealing with a mixed group, you gotta say Wilmington. Yeah, but like nobody really knows much about Leland, so I claim Wilmington all the time. So I grew up here. I know the bones. I know like the community, not quite like the back of my hand. There's still some things that bewilder me and confuse me, but then there's things that I'm very familiar with. And so I feel like as a therapist in this area, I can help people who might be struggling with stuff navigate some of these things while also working on some of the goals that they want to work on. So yeah, I guess that's why I feel like I'm a part of the project.
That's a lot, and certainly your voice and expertise is needed in this conversation. So I'm glad to have you, and thank you for helping us navigate through that.
Absolutely.
All right, and I'm going to ask Brittany the same question. You know, what do you think that you bring to this work, and then why are you so passionate about it?
So I think when I think about what brings me to this work, I think in kind of touchstones throughout my life, right? So one is my upbringing and the incongruence that I noticed in my family of saying one thing. You know, my father tried very hard to make sure he didn't pass on, at least verbally, racist ideologies that he grew up with, yet he still passed them on in other ways. And so there was this tension for me that I felt as a kid. And then I went to social work school in 2006 and felt like I had my character torn apart and built back up, put back together with regards to these kinds of things with racism and working to be anti-racist and what that really meant and how that plays out in my work. And then, you know, I grew up in South Florida. I went to school, my undergrad is in New York, and then I went to graduate school and lived for 10 years in Boston, Massachusetts. And then I got cold and I moved to Wilmington. And so I came to Wilmington and quickly realized that Wilmington was a unique place. I didn't have a reference point for how to make sense of race relations in this port city town versus other places I've lived. And so that next touchstone is definitely seeing Chris Everett's film Wilmington on Fire. And so many things kind of connected for me. And that got me on a path of wanting to be part of the solution in Wilmington locally around how do we live in a place that has such a compelling historical trauma story that I believe kind of works itself out in our interactions, whether we're from here or whether we've moved in from other places. And so I then kind of used my artistic talents in terms of being a dancer and a choreographer to create this performance called the Invisibility Project. And that has grown into a passion of mine to really help people have relationships, true, authentic relationships, true, authentic conversations across race lines. And so I'm actually going to end my little spiel about how I come to this work with a clip from the Invisibility Project to sort of anchor this and give us a little bit of a example of what's possible. Not to present the Invisibility Project as this lovely, successful thing, but to really just let people see like what we're trying to do with this program is get people to get to a place of authenticity. And then to be able to create something, right? To be able to have a presentation at the end of phase 3 to show what you've learned. And really the performance of Invisibility Project is kind of that. It is a product of a whole host of conversations and deep, authentic relationship. So what you're about to see is a very small minute and 15-second clip of a piece of the Invisibility Project that is performed by Kylo Laurent and Amanda Wolf. This little clip that I'm going to show you, just to give you a little context, was Kyla's response to a prompt I gave the cast to make a solo about how they feel living in Wilmington in the wake of 1898. And then this is what she came up with. And then we framed it around into a full-length duet with Amanda. So I will leave it at that. People can watch it and see what comes up for them. But this is, again, to give you kind of a glimpse of what we're hoping to do with this project, and also just kind of let people know what's possible. You can be as creative or as solely verbal as you'd like as we move through this process.
Great.
So hopefully
you.
this will work, and I'm going to share my screen and then
Cross our fingers.
have everybody. I know, right? So I'm actually going to set up the screen first so that people are seeing what I want them to see. Oops. All right, did that work for everybody?
Looks good.
Okay. Okay, so as I said, I was going to give you a snippet.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I have a couple questions for sure. I'm thinking, okay, Suzanne, if we aren't uncomfortable, we aren't learning is one of the quotes that I believe you have said before. Will there be a professional available for me to speak with here? And if I'm uncomfortable, is there a signal that I can use to alert my facilitators? I'm looking at this performance. I actually have more questions about that too, but that one is a big one that's come up.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I feel like maybe Jamie, Brittany, and Franchon can chime in here too. I do feel like we have to stretch. And watching this, it's funny, Brittany and I have worked really hard to figure out what to show y'all because the whole performance is just so amazing and so powerful. And what we really want people, I think one of the differences about this project is that we want you to feel it in your body. We're not just talking. We want there to be healing. And when you're talking about trauma informed work, you know, we're looking at what holds us back inside. And so Jamie, Franchon, and Brittany are all very highly qualified, highly trained therapists. And you know, we have all discussed what will happen in these conversations to make it as safe as possible. And so if you are, having, if this brings up feelings for you, we want that to happen, but we also want it to be in a safe place. So we'll provide resources for you.
Okay, well, I have to say, you know, I may not be the best dancer in the world, and seeing that as a great example, but makes it's a little intimidating maybe. And my question is to Franchon, does everyone have to participate in this final presentation, especially if they have public speaking concerns or getting up and doing a skit or a presentation like this? Might have some nervousness around that.
At Healing Your Almond, we really like to do challenge by choice. So what that means is that we want people to participate to the level that they feel comfortable. So if that means that they end up doing dancing or spoken word or visual arts, or you know, they read something in the presentation and all we hear is their voice, but there's no image. However you feel comfortable participating is how we want you to participate in that final phase 3. The Invisibility Project is just a wonderful example of a way that was done. It's one option. We wanted to show it because we want people to understand that we can literally do anything. Like by the time we get to phase 3, our hope is that we're both hands off. Like our job is to provide you with resources. But the participants that choose to move on to phase 2, you guys will get to decide what phase 3 looks like. We won't. The only thing that we're deciding is we're going to present it to the community because we're very proud of it. But what it looks like is completely up to the participants. And your participation level is also completely up to you, but we encourage everybody to contribute something.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, Marla, if I could just add really quickly about that kind of support, right? Like Suzanne said, we are going to do our very, very, very best to create a safe space for these very difficult kind of authentic conversations. I do want people to think about, as you consider engaging in the full program, to take some time to determine the difference in your body, in your mind, in your heart between discomfort and trauma triggering, because those are not the same thing, right? So if you are a person that having a conversation on my and my contribution to this, if you're a person who has a difficult time, like if having a conversation in a space with other white people about racism and white supremacy, because of your particular life and your particular set of experiences, if that's likely to trigger a trauma for you, this may not be the right time for you to engage in a process like this, particularly because it is going to be virtual, and that limits some ability to handle those things. If, however, you are concerned about discomfort because maybe this is new to you, you've not had these kinds of conversations before, that I want you to encourage to stretch yourself, to join, to trust us to hold that safe space, to be able to create just enough discomfort for learning. So I hope that creates some clarification around that.
I think it does. I think it does. Thank you for that. And I just want to touch in on another spot that you said about creating a safe space. Where does that fall in confidentiality? Is what we say inside the group going to be confidential?
Sorry, I muted
I
myself.
will take that. I'll take that question.
Yeah.
Sure.
So absolutely, phase 2 is completely confidential. So phase 1, which is today and the rest of the week, which is inviting people, we are recording that so that people can participate and get the same information that y'all are getting. Phase 2, when we meet as groups with just our facilitators, that will not be recorded and that information will not be shared with anybody. I want you to think about like AA, so like AA is kind of like, it's not therapy, but there's this understood like expectation that we don't talk about participants that we see. It's the same thing with our group. So we will cover all of that our first session together, but no, nothing will be recorded and nothing will be shared. And then how you participate in phase 3 will be recorded and will be shared, but you get to decide what your participation level looks like.
Great. All right. And for Jamie, where do you see this group, this work going after May of this year?
Well, my hope is that people walk away with a different level of awareness, that they are able to, again, find language around some of the different experiences that they have had. But also, I don't know, I want to kind of leave that open-ended because I think it's going to be different for everybody. But again, overall, I think awareness is the key, like awareness of the issues. And I think one of the things that strikes me sometimes is like our responses to different issues that kind of come up, whether it's in the media or in our communities. And like this surprise is kind of like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that this is happening in 2021. But like, we need to be aware that these things are happening and what kind of like surrounds that, like how did we get here? So like helping people to kind of educate themselves, but also kind of increasing awareness.
Great, thank you. And Franchon has been monitoring our chat box, and there's some questions in there that maybe you'd like to highlight. And I know there's some good ones in there, but there's some good points that are brought up. So Franchon, I'm going to give that over to you for a bit to kind of tell us what's been happening in our chat.
Absolutely, thank you. Some of them are kind of quick questions, so I answered them, but some of them require a little bit more explanation and additional opinions beyond me. For those of you that don't know me, I just want to kind of give everybody a heads up that yes, Healing Your Almond is very much my company, but this team, we're very much all equal partners in this work, which means I can only speak for my portion of things, which is why I wanted the whole team here. I can't really speak for my facilitators because what they do, I trust them implicitly, so they will do everything they need. It will be up to them. So the first question was spaces. We do have 20 spaces for each group. So that potentially could equal a total of 20 or 40 participants. So that was the first question. And then the next question is there a curriculum that needs to be engaged in? So books, videos, things that need to happen in between sessions. I will let you know that for Jamie and I, for the People of Color group, there will be opportunities for reflection, maybe light journaling, but we are not assigning homework. So We're not saying you need to go read this, or you need to go watch this, or you need to go do that. We will not be, we'll probably provide resources of like options of podcasts and books and things that you can refer to, but will not be required in between sessions. And then Brittany and Suzanne, if you guys could answer the homework question for y'all's group, that would be great. And then we'll go to the next question.
Yes, so it's going to be very similar to what Franchon just shared. Any homework that will be assigned, and I use that very loosely, right? It will be more like a suggestion, is to take whatever insights and increased awareness that you get in a session and try to take that into your everyday life in between sessions. There won't be any written work assigned or even additional readings in those sessions. We will develop kind of a running list of resources that will run the gamut so that you can make the decision about how deep or how shallow you need to go at this point in your journey.
Okay, beautiful. And then another question we had is, are you planning to have a balance of people of color and white participants? My answer is I would love that in a dream world, but we live in Hanover County, Wilmington, North Carolina. So I don't know that that's going to happen. We absolutely are not going to limit people coming based on ethnicity. That's just not, it's not something I do. We are specifically recruiting and reaching out to people of color to participate. We don't know what those numbers are going to look like yet. So no, they're absolutely, I cannot guarantee a balance. That's just something we're just not doing that. So we'll see what happens. I hope that answers the question in terms of number of participants. And then Marla, did we answer all of our questions? Do you want to just open it up to everybody for questions, or is there something else that we missed?
No, I think we got
Marla,
the ones
keep
that
us on track.
No, I think we've got us covered as far as what we wanted to answer inside there, but I think that the chat had some great questions, but certainly I think it's probably time to open it up and see if anybody has any closing questions.
And while you guys are thinking about that, please feel free to take yourself off mute. Peter, did you have a question?
I did. I was wondering.
Okay, go ahead.
When did people need to make a commitment by?
That is a great question. We just revamped our deadline. So I do believe it is March 30th. If I remember correctly, team, if you want to give me a head nod. Yes. Okay, so the way it's going to go moving forward is there is a small form that you have to fill out, letting us know your intent to participate. It's literally 5 questions. It's like, what group do you want to be in? What's your language preference? Do you live in Hanover County? And we will leave that open all the way up until March 30th. And then our first group will be April 1st. So that will go out in a link, like a form link to everybody that registered for today's session, and that it should be up in the next couple of days. So people can start registering for phase 2 starting by probably Saturday, the latest. And then you'll have from Saturday, March 13th, all the way to Tuesday, March 30th to decide if you would like to participate.
Thank you. I think there's another question in the chat.
Oh, I can help. Let me look.
No, it was just to clarify. It says
I'm just going to read it out loud. Just to clarify, groups will meet to hold discussion. Go ahead, Marla. Go ahead. Go for it.
Sorry. It was just to clarify, groups will meet to hold discussions that will eventually become a creative presentation for the public. Will these questions focus on particular aspects of equity and our personal experiences and our observations? Are these discussions, not questions?
That is a great question. Yes, you are understanding correctly. They are discussions, and so what happens in phase 2 is going to be largely determined by the participants. So what's going to happen in that first session is we're all going to get together and kind of meet. So this way, each individual facilitator will know who is in the room. And then the context, like, so for example, to answer your question about a particular aspect of equity, if we have participants that really want to focus on education, or really want to focus on health, or really want to focus on public transportation system, or whatever it is that you're passionate about, we are going to help kind of guide that conversation based on what is most important to the participants. And then that will happen throughout all of phase 2. And then phase 3 is, out of all the things we learned, because we're probably going to learn a lot, what are the most important takeaways and what parts do you feel comfortable sharing with the public?
Okay. I think that covered that. I don't
If
see
I
any
can
other questions.
add
Yep.
quickly to that. First, structurally, because I think there was a question earlier around separate groups versus together. So what Franchon just said, that first session will be all together. All 4 facilitators, all 40 participants. I'm just speaking it out there. We're gonna hope that we're gonna get 40, 20 in each group. So that's going to be a big group, right? To get to see everybody's faces, to know who's in the program, to kind of just, and we'll have lots more information about what the whole thing is going to look like at that meeting. Then there will be 4 sessions separate. So we'll have the white people will be with me and Suzanne, and people of color will be with Franchon and Jamie for 4 sessions Thursday evenings. And then we will all come back together and then kind of move into phase 3, right? So, and then I just want to add that when we think about discussion, when we think about, teaching or some of the other things that we've all probably participated in, the title is really important, right? We're flipping the conversation. We're doing this differently. We're flipping it inside out in a lot of ways, right? This is going to go deeper than sort of the usual conversations we have about equity and the way that racism plays out in our community, right? This is about really trying to heal, trying to dig deep, trying to move forward, trying to be different people as we move into living in New Hanover County along with each other.
Thank you for adding that part. I think that summed that up pretty well. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions. I'll do a last call for any other clarifying questions or anything else that the audience might have. All right. I think we're pretty good. So at this point, I'm going to thank everybody, the panelists especially, and for all of us for attending. Oh, it looks like it says, how long are the sessions on Thursdays? That is one last question, if anybody wants to tackle that one on the length of time.
They are scheduled to be an hour and a half.
Thank you. All right. So Franchon, I'm just going to kind of leave this to you to have any additional closing words, because they're clean up anything that we might have missed and send us off on our way.
Thank you. First of all, thank you to my team. Thank you for Marla. Thank you guys so much. I really, really appreciate you. I've been nervous for a solid 2 days. I always panic before anything that's super important to me or that's new. So I've been panicking. But thank you all for coming. I really, really appreciate that. So that's number one. Number two, we are going to eventually post a recording of this, but I would really like to encourage you to invite other people to come to one of the other 2 sessions just to hear and meet us in person and ask any questions they may have. So that next session is Friday, March 12th at 8 a.m. And then there is a bilingual session that we are offering Saturday, March 13th at 12:30 p.m. And the bilingual session will also have our 5th facilitator. Her name is Victoria. She is a Latina that's in the MSW program at UNCW. So she will be another facilitator that will be joining us as well. So we want to make sure that for those of you that are here for other people on behalf of yourself and other people, we really encourage people to come and kind of meet us themselves virtually so they can make their own decisions and ask their own questions, because they may have a different question. You guys have great questions, but I know this is difficult work and it's touchy topics. And I know it's a little scary. So that's why we wanted to give people plenty of opportunities to meet us before they decide that they want to participate in phase 2. So that's one thing I wanted to let everybody know. The other thing was I will make sure to send out an email to everybody that registered for this information session, letting you all know when the form is up to register for phase 2. And the question that nobody asked, but I just want to clarify, if you did not come to an information session, but you still want to come to phase 2, that's totally fine. So you don't have to come to an information session to engage in phase 2. We just prefer that because this way you kind of know what you're getting yourself into. And I think that's pretty much it. All updates will always be housed on healingyouroutman.com/upcoming. That's where we're housing all the information. So that's where you can read my team's bios. That's where you can register for anything, fill out any forms, anything like that. And then the email that you guys got 10 minutes before today's session is my email. So if you have any follow-up questions that you would feel more comfortable asking me individually, or if you would like some contact information for my team, please reach out to me and let me know, and I can facilitate that. And I think those are all the things. We don't want to take up everybody's time. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you to the facilitator. Thank you to my teammates. And if you just want to hang out, if you have any final questions, feel free. We're just going to chat for a couple minutes, but otherwise, thank you all for joining. Please enjoy your day. It's not raining outside, so I suggest getting some health and wellness and vitamin D in your life.
Great. And I think we're going to go ahead and stop recording at this point. And as people exit, we're just going to hang on here for a minute to make sure we've got everybody